And I can't start any of these live streams with "and we're live" because Bering made fun of me now. Apparently it's like a thing. That's how people start. But I'm here live with Brittany Pettibone.
Hello, everyone.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you? It's been a while.
I know, it's been like 4 months. I thought that we should do a little hangout and catch back up and see what projects you've been working on. I saw that you gave a speech in Portland. I just watched your video.
Oh yeah, I actually didn't speak there, but I did go to live stream because I thought it was going to be a pretty big deal since, because of the recent Portland stabbing, Jeremy Christian.
Yeah.
So, and it was massive. We were outnumbered like 4 or 5 to 1.
Really?
Surrounded on all sides. It wasn't just Antifa this time. It was a bunch of Portland residents, hundreds of them, and they were just screaming at us the most inane things, like we're murderers, and I don't know, it was insane. But even Homeland Security was there. There were so many cops. They had to.
That's wild. They really picked up this narrative and ran with it, even though it came out very quickly that this was a Bernie guy who seemed to have a mental health issue, as far as I could tell.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people were saying. It seemed like he wasn't mentally stable. And yes, he was a very adamant Bernie supporter who hated Trump and Clinton. So
I saw a video of him at some other rally from, I don't know, a while ago, and he was just ranting and raving like a crazy person. I was like, this guy's totally batshit insane, right? So this whole white supremacy thing, it's just pulled out of nowhere. Like, where did they even get this? Was he actually yelling racial slurs while he was slashing people? I mean, is that even true?
I don't know. What I heard actually is that he confronted these Muslim women because he was against religion. It wasn't a racial issue. He hated all forms of religion. So that is what I heard that it was. And so hence he would, go after Muslims, but he would have, gone after any religious person because he hates religion. That's what I heard it was. And then of course they try and spin it to be a racial thing or a political thing. And it wasn't. Clearly he's just off his rocker, to put it lightly.
Yeah. So this was like an anti-white supremacist event in Portland.
Yeah. It was a free speech rally, but all of the people, like everything you go to, like the whole anti-Sharia marches that recently took place all across the country, that turned into a Trump versus anti-Trump thing too. Antifa versus the Nazis. It always comes back to that every time, no matter, you could be marching to like feed the homeless and they would oppose it because you are white supremacists or whatever.
Well, this anti-Sharia thing, I love how they played this out like it was some kind of anti-Muslim, specifically anti-Muslim. It's like, we're talking specifically about Sharia law. They couldn't seem to.
Exactly. I'm interviewing, the peaceful imam, the guy on Twitter. I'm going to interview him Wednesday, and I want to objectively sit down and be like, because he is still Muslim, he's just for certain reforms within Islam, obviously, because he openly admits it's very violent and there are problems inherent within it. So I'm going to interview him and try and sit him down objectively and say, can you explain what Sharia law is and what you have a contention with regarding Sharia law, or just with Islam in general? What are you pushing, advocating for to reform? And then hopefully people can watch that from an actual Muslim's perspective.
Right. I've been loving his series of tweets recently. He seems really big.
He's brutal.
Yeah. Yet he's still Muslim. So
yeah.
I guess we need people to secularize from within. We can't just tell people to abandon their faith. That's not going to work.
Oh no, and it's a good thing that this is what we want. We want Muslims who are opposed to the violence to speak out against it and to take a stand. That's the point. But I don't see many of them doing that.
I think the one of the problems might be that they're leaving Islam when the reality of all of that descends on them. Like Ayan Hirsi Ali, she's like, no, I can't be Muslim anymore. So who is really staying behind? I mean, I think that if you're a Muslim, to some degree, you've abandoned your moderate position. You can't really hold it. So it'll be interesting to see what he says in your interview.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm so happy he said yes. So we'll see what comes of that. But yeah, Wednesday. So I'm going to try and post it Thursday right away because I think it's important right now, the discussion around it. So yeah.
But that's something I wanted to talk to you about. I had Lauren Southern on the other day and I asked her this question, but I have been in such a rut these last few weeks because I'm feeling really, really nihilistic about Western civilization, about political discourse. And so I was like, all right, Brittany's pretty positive. I'm going to go watch her video. And so I just watched your video before this and I'm like, oh no, everything's falling apart. So I assume you're pretty pessimistic too, based on the video you just released.
Yeah, the thing is I always try to remain optimistic because it's really interesting. If you when you read In Defense of Sanity by G.K. Chesterton, he has a an essay in there about the optimist, and that the truly courageous and strong people are optimistic, because it takes strength to be optimistic in the most dire situations. And being pessimistic just caters to our weak nature.
It's so much easier, though.
Yeah, it's so much easier. But on the other hand, like our will and our thoughts, they are very powerful. They have the power to make us successful. Just being mentally strong. So, in saying I can do this. So that's why I force myself to be positive and as optimistic as I can, no matter what. Even though pragmatically, when you do approach it, it looks quite dire. Yes, because even the right is extremely divided. Rather than, lately, maybe it's just me, I've been feeling this of late, rather than focus on the main issues like combating globalism. Isn't this something in common that we all have that we want to see taken down? But it's not. The focus isn't solely there anymore. It's more about fighting with one another in drama and tearing each other down on the right because you don't agree with certain things that they advocate for. And I just feel like isn't that a leftist tendency? to I don't agree with you there, so I'm going to shut you down and rip you apart.
I don't know, maybe it's a human tendency.
It is, but the right just fought it for so long that it just seems strange that they're turning around now, certain people, and doing that. I'm not going to call it any names because I don't believe in punching to the right unless it's privately. That's totally cool. Like, contact someone you have a problem with, like, privately, and try and work it out. But as for publicly, it emboldens the left. It does nothing for us. It just divides us further, and I think it's really detrimental, and I hope that it will subside here. But it seems to only be getting worse.
But I'm sympathetic to the nihilists too, because it feels you start to feel foolish when you've been optimistic and you just keep getting knocked down. And so I keep having this hope that the left is going to realize, their position, because it seems so clear to me. It's so transparent. And I'm like, they've got to have some level of self-awareness. This is going to show them that what they're thinking is absolutely ridiculous, that their behavior is ridiculous.
Exactly.
And it just never does. And so I'm kind of like wallowing in this hopelessness, because this Comey thing, I was like, he is vindicated. He's absolutely vindicated. Like, they're done. There's no way. And then I look on CNN and every article is like talking about how impeachment is absolutely, inevitable.
They'll never admit they're wrong or take any kind of responsibility for any lies they may have fomented in the past or fake news. That's the thing. And it's even with, the Manchester attack, we thought that would wake people up. But the first thing you see being tweeted by these people defending it are, even worse is, I feel bad for the Muslims that are going to take heat because of this.
I know. It's so crazy. And you were just recently in Europe too. I was this winter, and like, I left feeling more hopeless than when I got there, because I realized that these people don't have the will to save their own culture and their own people. And if they don't have the will, then how has it become my personal responsibility?
You can't have the will for them. I can't
have the will for them. And it's so frustrating to me, because it's these beautiful cultures, like my ancestral homelands, that are just being totally forsaken. They're just giving this away, and they're acting like they're such good people. And so I actually left Europe furious. I was furious.
Yeah.
Did you get that same sentiment?
It was quite disheartening visiting Paris. I visited Paris in 2013, and it was like a totally different city. Just the whole aura of the city. And like the difference is, the best way I can describe it is, I would not walk alone even during the daytime in Paris by myself now. But I did it. In 2013, I flew there alone, stayed the night alone. And then later I was with some other people, but I was there alone and I felt fine. It's completely different, the atmosphere, and people are just blind to it. And even a lot of, like, we were in one nice area. I guess you'd call it like a no-go zone, but it was a nice area. It was just a lot of the buildings were vandalized and there was graffiti everywhere, but then it was completely populated by migrants. And so a lot of people didn't go there anymore, like the normal, like, average French
And I
citizens.
heard that the police presence is just overwhelming now. I was there in 2015. It was right at the onset of the migrant crisis. And I had been there, I don't know, many years prior. And I was totally shocked. Like, at that time I was looking around and I'm like 30% of these people are Muslim. I mean, it was totally mind-blowing. I couldn't believe the demographic change. And then I saw a video the other day from what looked like the center of Paris, and every person that was walking by was like a North African Muslim.
Yeah.
It used to be the center of Western civilization. How did this happen? And the French, they're a prideful people. Like, if you approach them in English, like, they'll get mad. They're like, approach me in French.
Yeah, that's how it was when I went. Yeah, and many of them don't even learn English. Like when I was there, I had to learn French, and the family I was staying with, half of them didn't speak English. So it was like if I didn't learn French, I couldn't converse. And I love that. It motivates you to learn and take in their culture, and that's what I did. And so by the time I left, I was pretty much fluent in French, and it was amazing. But that should be the price of immigration, assimilation, and not living on welfare. You know, actually being a contributor to that society.
Right. Which brings up an important question. You know, are there cultures and societies that you can't assimilate into Western society?
I think yes.
I think so too.
They're just not compatible. And that's the question that most, you know, they just won't admit. And that's the problem. That's where we disagree. But I mean, it's at this point where a terror attack happens and, you know, over 20 people are killed, and yet we're just still fighting. We can't agree that this is a horrible thing and something needs to be done. Steps need to be taken to ensure this does not happen again.
Well, I found out when I was in Germany that, you know, there's not a lot of religious protection per se. You can make a religion illegal. It's actually illegal to be a Scientologist there. And so I was thinking, like, why can they not just outlaw Islam? Like, no mosques, take every mosque to the ground. Why can they not do this?
I think they would if they had the perception that Islam as a whole was not compatible and then it shouldn't be there. But they don't have that. They say some you know, Muslims are terrorists and only some are a problem. So that's why they're acting that way. And they say, you know, oh, you just have to get used to it. Terrorism is, you know, going to be a part of everyday life, living in a big city, like the London mayor said.
I just have a hard time believing that your average person cares more about appearing benevolent than about children getting ripped apart in the street by a truck. I just don't believe that. And I just keep wondering, you know, I made that video, what is it going to take for Europeans to push back? That was 4 months ago, before several of these terrorist attacks had happened. And I still wonder, like, I can't put a number on it. I can't put a situation on it. I think that it is going to be an astronomical loss of life that is required to wake Europeans up.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really see another way.
And I mean, it's gotten to the point where you see articles coming out, like in the UK, where they're monitoring Facebook posts. And if you post something that offends Muslims or is somehow critical of Islam, you can be arrested. So I think a lot of people may be thinking what we're thinking, but are not speaking out because they're afraid. They don't want to face prison, you know, being arrested, prison, their reputations being ruined, their social statuses being compromised, all those kinds of things, maybe losing their jobs and so, yeah, it's fear right now. They're in complete submission because of fear. And it's a really sad thing.
It is really sad. It's a broken people. And, you know, there isn't anything that you can do to make them want to change. And the French, this really bothers me because I feel like as a tourist, really the whole time they were approaching me like I needed to assimilate as a tourist to some degree, but the same standards are not applied to any migrants, to any immigrants. And I don't know, just getting inside the psyche of the Western European at this point in time, it's really difficult.
Really difficult.
That's something else I wanted to ask you. Like, as an average citizen, I watched a Stefan Molyneux video, and it was talking about how in everyday discourse we can influence things on a small level, and we all have a job to do. And so what do you think the average person can do to try to save Western civilization in their daily lives?
I think it's one thing, it's very important. Ensure a good education for your kids is very important. Don't let them go to a place where they're going to be completely brainwashed. And it's either, you know, you believe in communism and accept this, or you're going to fail. You know, like, try to get them in a good education, because a foundation is the most important thing, a good, strong foundation. Because if you don't have that, and if you're not also confident in your arguments, that's also, you know, you're not going to be able to go up to people who you disagree with and prove them wrong using facts and logic. So that would be another thing. But then also, just for those who can afford it, I know some people still are afraid of losing their jobs for speaking out, and that's perfectly understandable. But for those who have nothing more than maybe like a reputation on the line or losing friends, it really is worth it to speak out. You're going to gain a million more friends.
That's what I always tell people. It's like all these doors closed, but then 10 times as many opened. And I had a new social group that was more supportive, that I could be honest with. And that was really liberating just to be able to talk freely about the things that you feel and your belief system with your peers. Like that really, really made a difference in my life.
There's nothing more liberating. Like you might, it's not worth it. Like maybe, you know, being held in regard in, you know, the social eye, or actually having friends who care about you and who think, despite where you may disagree slightly, it's just so much more worth it. Like it's, I can say it because I've experienced it. I've gone through it. I was in the writing industry for about 10 years. I could never speak one word about my political views. It was very claustrophobic and just stifling to me. And when I came out, it was very liberating. Sure, there were a lot of trials that come along with it, but I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Lots of ups and downs in this.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
But I love it. I mean, your average person can really have a voice and build influence. And that should be really build optimism in the general public. Like you can just take what you're seeing on a daily basis in your city, your town, and you can tell the world about it. YouTube has really changed the landscape of media.
Yep, absolutely. And they have that saying, you know, if you don't stand for anything, you'll fall for everything. Or if you don't have enemies, there's a problem. You're probably not standing for anything because you're disagreeing with everyone or laying down, you know, being a doormat. So you can look at it that way too. It's no matter what you believe, if you're on whatever political position you occupy, people are going to disagree with you and hate you either way. So,
and that's true of, you know, if you have any position, I think people just need to get over being hated. It's not so bad.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people place way more fear on it than there actually is. Like it's not, you get desensitized really quickly. You'd be surprised. Like even the most sensitive person, I think, yeah, it could hurt at first more for certain people than others, but you definitely get desensitized and it just doesn't matter.
And then you can stand up to an increasing amount of criticism, which I've noticed. And that's been really helpful on my channel. Like initially I'd read comments and I'd be like, oh my God, this is the worst thing I've ever read. Now I'm just, I don't really care anymore. Yeah.
And you're never alone though. There are so many people on the right, you know, that are just lovely, that are willing to support you and help you out and encourage you. So there's that too. You're never going to be alone.
That's another thing. Like, I think people are expecting like a slew of negativity, and that's really not, you know, the most things that we hear are really positive and really encouraging and really helpful. So I encourage people to start their own channel. It's not competition. You can be subscribed to as many people as you want to. And so the more voices that are out there, some of these issues we just need eyeballs on. Yeah,
absolutely. And there's so many people willing to do collaborations, interview you, have you on Hangouts, those kinds of things. Especially if you go to events where a lot of people meet up in real life and then actually meet people and kind of form, you know, relationships and things. And then you can really easily utilize that network to expand your channel and get your opinions and your voice out there.
And the networking happens really fast because everybody kind of hears, you know, the videos get shared really quickly. Everybody hears about each other. They see them pop up on Twitter and everything get retweeted. And so it's actually, if you're producing content on a regular basis, it's actually relatively easy to get brought into these folds and to build a network really quickly. People are really eager to talk and to build relationships with you because we used to be the minority as far as viewpoints are concerned.
Yeah, it's wonderful to see so many people popping up. It's amazing. Like there's so many people I can just search and be like, oh, I want to interview this person. Whereas like, I don't know, maybe I just didn't know about them, but less than a year ago, there wasn't even half this many.
Right.
And it seems like there are a lot of more younger women making YouTube channels too.
Yeah. And I feel like people are flipping. Like this Lacey Green thing was more meaningful to me than it was to other people because I was like, you know, people like Lacey, feminists, are really looking at their lives and looking at what feminism has done to them personally, has done to their personalities, their behavior. And they're recognizing it and they're changing behavior and acting accordingly. And so that's been really hopeful for me. I'm really hopeful about Lacey.
I think it shows really strong character on her part, that she has that self-awareness and that she's able to actually reflect within and be like, okay, I might have been wrong here, or I'm gonna, because some people just never grow because their minds aren't open. So that's something that I really respect her for, despite where we may disagree still. But
I still think that most leftists are just going to double down generally. That seems to be what they're doing.
And I know I was reading her Twitter the other day and she's getting attacked by a lot of feminists.
Yeah, her family got doxxed. And
oh, really? Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah, by feminists. It's like, because you're not playing on the same team anymore. You gotta.
Yeah, it's crazy.
These tactics are so juvenile and really damaging. I mean, what if like people show up to her parents' house? They didn't ask for this.
I know. Yeah. They do that to Tim Pool too.
Oh, really?
Well, he tries to remain nonpartisan, like as objective as he can, in order to report on both, all political, the whole political spectrum. And just because he hangs out with Trump supporters, for example, he gets called an alt-right journalist or attacked by Antifa, etc. So I just think that's really sad that we've reached this point where you can't hang out with someone and be friends with someone without being guilty by association and somehow endorsing all of their political views. The same happens with me.
Oh yeah, totally. Do you get shit for going on Red Ice?
Oh yeah, my Wikipedia page is an absolute disaster.
I was going to ask you about that. I just checked it out.
Yeah, no, I'm in contact with a lawyer right now. I'm gonna do.
Well, for the audience, it says that she's like an alt-right white supremacist. It's really
it says, and all of this stuff in it. They basically, all of the articles they use to cite are just articles that have called me things based on nothing, based on no evidence. Like they're not actually using direct quotes.
That's crazy because I don't know if I've ever really heard you like directly address racial issues in the same way that I've heard like Lana or Tara McCarthy.
Well, I never have, and here's why. Yeah, and I never have, and here's why. Growing up, I was never taught or raised the way to kind of discern who a person was based on identity, racial identity or cultural identity even. It was always, well, it was culture or what they believed. That's just what I was taught. That's how I've always judged people, by their character, the contents of their character, their culture. And so this is all so new. Identity politics, I don't even know how to digest or swallow it. Like, it's just so much coming at me so fast. And so many people like, what's your opinion on this? And it's like, well, I don't know. I haven't done enough research. The thing is, what I say now is I have an open mind for all sorts of things, and I'm willing to learn and take in information and make decisions based off that. But I cannot make all of these decisions, someone like Lauren Southern, who's been in this far longer and is way more educated on many different topics. I'm just not when it comes to identity politics. It's so new and it was just thrown at me, and I really haven't done that much study. So I don't know. The only thing I identify is an American nationalist. So that's what I say, because I just don't know enough yet to take on any other labels. And I also don't like how they stereotype you. So that's what I say. But then on the other hand, on my show, I'm willing to talk to anyone. I've had alt-right people on my show. I've had alt-right people on my show. I've had libertarians on my show. I'm open to having leftists on my show. The thing is, whenever I have an alt-right person, it's like they use that against me to say, oh, she's a white supremacist or whatever, all this other crap, even though those certain alt-right people I may have had on aren't even white supremacists themselves. But it's kind of like this guilty by association thing that they're using, and it's hurting a lot of things. Right. Normally I wouldn't care, but like, for example, put it in this context. I am a writer and I write with my twin sister, who is not involved in any of this. But having those things written about me is going to affect her ability to create a living and have a career based on writing. And that really bothers me. It really does, because she didn't ask for any of this. And so it infuriates me when I see that, and to think that some of these things are gonna trickle down and affect her in a negative way. So yes, I'm in contact with lawyers now. Normally I just ignored it because I really don't care what people say, but it's getting to the point where I think they know, oh, she's not gonna contest anything, so we're just gonna write whatever the hell we want, just make it up, pull it out of thin air, and write it about her. So it's gotten to the point now where I am going to take legal action on all these people unless they.
I did get a little notice when I went to it today that said this article is being reviewed for neutrality.
Yeah, because, well, what Tim Pool did is he was looking at this, and he actually made a video about it today. What he did is he interviewed me when I was in Paris, and we went through a lot of things I believe, and they are in stark contrast. They're in stark conflict with what is written on that Wikipedia page, but they're saying you're not a legitimate source, Tim. We're going to actually take this article here that actually doesn't even contain Brittany's name in it, but it's more reliable. And so he got really mad. Like, how am I not reliable? I worked for Vice, I worked for Fusing, etc. So he made a video about that, because he's like, okay, I normally like Wikipedia, but they're saying like they're very biased now, and they have, their editors on there because they've locked the page. No one can edit it. So they've locked the page, and they are these like real people who really hate me are the only ones editing it and just making up crap. And now I'm getting like emails, like threats, like we're going to come to your house and we're going to come after your family and all that shit. It doesn't really bother me because I live in Idaho now. It's an open carry state. You don't even need a license. So go ahead, give it a try. But a lot of people, like my other address was doxxed, and, I would get emails, and still do, about people coming after me, which I really don't care about. It's the least of my worries. So where do you think this
is coming from? Is this people that are like pissed off from your tweets or from your public appearances or your YouTube videos, mm-hmm. which they're not super controversial? I think it's
Yeah, I don't know why they come after me so much. Like normally, like I said, it doesn't bother me, but I think the fact that I'm not fighting against them, I don't want to make a big public deal about it and this huge PR storm and tweet about it. I want to do it behind the scenes, and that's what I'm going to do with lawyers and try and get it all taken care of. I don't want to be like tweeting about it and making videos about it. I want to keep it, as calm as possible. But the thing is, I don't know why they're attacking me. It's been from the beginning. I've noticed, like, why do you even take the time to write articles about me? Why do you care? Like,
is it individuals or is it a group, a coordinated group? Do you know?
I don't know. But Antifa would write articles about me, to really false articles that Poll would send me, and then they'd like target me, like punch a Nazi, and Lauren Southern too, which is kind of hypocritical because they were getting all mad when Moldy Locks got punched, and yet they were,
right,
advocating for us to get punched. So whatever. But I don't know why. And yeah, it's gotten to the point where I should probably deal with it, because it's only going to get worse from here. And then there's probably going to come a point where I can't, fight it, because it's just turned into too big of a monster. So I want to try and just get that taken care of.
I don't know if that's true, because of people, they've lost reliability in media sources. Like, I'm not going to go to Wikipedia to find solid information about really anything. I mean,
yeah, a lot of people do though, and even people on the right. Like, there were people on the right that actually believed some of this stuff, that like talked to me in private, and I'm like, ha ha ha, no. I have to be like, no, that's not true. But a lot of people believe it. So I figure that I'll just, go after it, because it's not true. And look, for the most part, I really don't care because I do have a lot of alt-right friends, and I'm going to continue having alt-right people on my channel, because I believe in freedom of speech, and that's how it goes. Even if I disagree with someone's viewpoint, the point is not to have an echo chamber. But I think a lot of people are very angry that I host a show with Tara McCarthy, because her views are obviously more, she's a lot more far right than I am. And I've stated, like, yeah, Tara and I are super good friends, and we agree on a lot of things, and we disagree on a lot of things. But the point is, we don't want to be just cardboard cutouts of one another, where we're just the same host. We want to have different opinions and be able to
that's the way it should be.
Things.
My podcast co-host is left of center, although if he's listening, that would probably piss him off. But I mean, for the most part, he's a centrist, and he gets so much flack because I'm further right. It's like, what they really want is no intellectual diversity.
Exactly.
The great irony. They don't care about diversity. They just want superficial diversity, like diversity of skin color. It's cute, and diversity of food, things like that. But as far as ideas are concerned, they really don't want that. They want everybody to believe the same thing. Yeah. And that was leading into another question I wanted to ask you. We talked about this a little bit on Virtue of the West, but I went to Mizzou, and
Oh, you did.
Yeah, I got a pretty good indoctrination. It wasn't horrible. I think it's gotten a lot worse in the last 2 or 3 years. But I'm going to give my children very different advice about college than I was given, because I want them to come out of college with a skill. And what I'm seeing now is people leave academia being they have a victim complex. They haven't developed a skill set. They come out worse than they went in. And so, I'm going to tell my kid, like, if you want to go to trade school, but like none of this liberal arts shit. So what advice would you give to college age students right now? I mean, I think to some degree, a degree is not as essential as it used to be. I think that
that's exactly what I was going to say. Well, if you want to be a lawyer or something, it's usually essential that you attend college, something like for a deliberate degree. But on the other hand, if not, a lot of people are encouraging, and I kind of agree, actually, I do strongly agree with a trade school. Just get a trade and then go out and directly do that trade, because college, it's like brainwashing nowadays for the most part. And if you are intelligent, then you just have to keep your head, like, not intelligent, but if you are like against what they are,
you just have to push through and get your
then you have to put your head down, not say anything. I mean, I guess you could try, and it could be really useful to debate the professors, but then again, they might give you like a bad mark, a bad grade if you do so.
Right.
Because it's kind of like my way or the highway. So I don't know. But trade, I think a lot of people have been saying, I've been hearing lately, even like people I know in my family, my parents are encouraging people to adopt some kind of trade, because it's going to be really useful. And I would have to agree there. Yeah.
And with the sharing economy, I just don't think that people care as much about degrees as they did in previous generations. I mean, we have YouTube channels and we make money from them. Nobody's ever asked me what my credentials are. So
I've seen a surge in like entrepreneurial things. whether it be, someone starting a YouTube channel or their own kind of business here and there. I've seen that a lot more. Maybe it's just my social circle, but it seems to be something on the rise.
No, it's definitely true. So why would I go to college and come out in, $50,000 to $150,000 of debt?
Exactly.
Dumber, less employable, and with a shitload of debt. Why would anybody do that? This is unsustainable. And so I've been saying this for like years, but I do think the problem's probably going to take care of itself. I think that the higher education bubble is going to burst, but I just keep waiting. I'm like, all right, isn't it time? Isn't this going to happen?
Yeah, I don't know, but it's definitely not what it was.
No, nope. I don't know. At this point, I'm like, is academia really what we should be targeting? I mean, I think it is probably the most useful tool to the left at this point, but I think your average person can see like what happened at Mizzou, that it's no longer an institution of learning. They've dropped, enrollments dropped by 35% this year.
Yeah.
So that's gotta be telling.
I mean, as far as the culture war is concerned, I think it's twofold. The areas: first, education reform, and then second is fighting through the arts, every medium of art,
That's
television,
true.
books, because that's what they use. So, like, the entertainment industry is the biggest thing, and it's the most influential, and everyone, watches television, reads books, just even down to modern art, music. Like, all these industries are massive, and they're definitely responsible for shifting the culture one way or the other. They put their propaganda in it. So there's not a lot that is in favor of more right-wing politics, and that's the problem. It's all the other side, everything that we oppose. So,
but I do feel like I'm seeing kind of shifts in popular culture as well. Like,
yeah, definitely.
I tweeted about this Katy Perry live stream, and everybody's like, why are you watching it? And I only watched like 20 or 30 minutes of it, but she is just having a meltdown, like the most public mental health breakdown since Britney Spears. And nobody's really paying attention because she has this feminist activist guise that she's using to cover this complete personal breakdown. And then we saw the same thing happen to Miley Cyrus, and then she got all traditional. Now she's engaged, and like I saw her wearing like an adorable appropriate length dress the other day. I was like, what is going on? Like, maybe culture is shifting. People are seeing in popular culture that feminism is a detriment to women's mental health, and it's not helping their lives at all or their careers. And they're changing that. This is like a real cultural shift, or maybe it's just two people. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think it's starting. It's nowhere near what we're going to need. I think it's going to take many years, but Generation Z is definitely, things are looking up.
It's exciting. Yeah. I read that they're the most conservative generation since, is it the greatest generation? Is that what our grandparents were? I'm not entirely sure, but it's
but in a long time. And when you have things happen like what would happen to PewDiePie, who has the most subscribers on all of YouTube, I do not like. What did the mainstream media think? Like, going against him, it's like an ant.
Well, I think what they
shaking its fist at a human.
Yeah, I mean, it was so brazen. They thought that they were going to turn on PewDiePie and that his 55 million or whatever subscribers would be like, oh, I guess we hate PewDiePie now. But instead, everybody's like, oh, fuck the Wall Street Journal, and I hope all these old guys die. It's like, well, what do you expect was going to happen? Media they are so brazen with this, with these hate pieces.
I think they have no self-awareness about how many people hate them.
Yeah, I mean, they have to know. Look at BuzzFeed and their YouTube videos, like the downvotes. They are getting
they don't double. They double down though. I feel like the mainstream media is doubling down, even though they know they're hated. But that's what they do. So,
I mean, the average age of a Fox viewer is 68, and it's 61 for CNN. It's around that for all the what they have to bring in new blood, or all these major networks are just going to die out, and alternative media is already poised to take their place, and they already are. I mean, Philip DeFranco, his views,
my gosh,
like Fox, and he's one man, just one man.
Yeah. And people love him because he presents himself more objectively.
Right,
like,
and he's relatable, and it's down to
feminist. Yeah, like this feminism thing is crazy here. Yeah, or, like he'll actually call it out. He won't just defend everything blindly. And so
and I think
I watch him a lot. I think he's great.
I like him a lot, and I think he's a centrist, and I think he's really unbiased. But I think that something that young people are also responding to is that we're doing this from our homes. Like, you're filming in your bedroom. I'm in a bedroom right now. It's like, that's relatable. Being on the internet, being in your own home, and just talking into a camera, that's really relatable to people. And so alternative media, I just don't really see a way where legacy media wins out on this.
Yeah. Definitely. And I think in regards to people like Philip DeFranco or, Lacey Green, who's re-examining certain perceptions, or Tim Pool, people who don't really identify, they don't at all identify with the right, but are willing to treat us objectively, and for as far as Philip DeFranco and Tim Pool report on us more objectively, that we should be really welcoming and thankful to them for that, and not treat them with hostility just because they disagree with us on certain issues. But I do see a lot of that, and I'm like, why would you do this? It's just going to chase them away. But I see they do get a lot from certain people on the right, and I would rethink that because they're like, this is what we want. We don't want people to necessarily everyone to have to agree with us. We just want them to report on us and show us in a way that is objective and true. Like, there's no more truth anymore.
Right. And to have self-awareness.
Yeah. So like, I'm always really thankful for that, or because mainstream media articles, they're like always just absolute hit pieces. I've been asked for so many interviews from so many of them, and I've said no to every single one. And then I don't even find them later when they're written, but my mom does. She's like, Britt, because she always finds everything about me on the internet, and she'll show them to me, and then I'll see that it's a hit piece anyway. They'll just make up stuff. And it's like, well, what would have happened? How much worse would it have been if I actually interviewed with them?
And I know that this is a strategy because I got a Daily Show request when I was at 50,000 subscribers. 50,000 subscribers. Yeah. That's it. I'm like, why do you want to talk to me? Is it because you looked at alternative media and you looked through some people that you thought might get big, and you tried to, stop them before their channels got too big? Is that what's happening here? Why else would you want to have somebody with 50,000 subscribers on YouTube?
Exactly.
And that was scary. That made me realize that, like, we have a lot of things coming our way from mainstream media. Yeah,
definitely. I think it would be a good idea if, since there are so many right-wing, or at least like libertarian YouTube channels that are really big and doing really well on YouTube right now, it'd be a good idea, maybe not this year, but at least next year, for a bunch of them to go to VidCon, because that's the biggest YouTube event of the year. And there is no presence really for the right or like libertarian. And it would be a really good thing, because then all of the people who agree with them would feel incentive to attend, and it can be more of a balanced thing. Because I just see, like, there's so many people on YouTube that have such big followings and could be so much more impactful actually showing up at certain events. But maybe like before now, people weren't ready for it. But I think that now, having people show up, it could be a really good thing.
I know that the Worskies and a lot of people are going this year, so maybe that'll make a difference. But I feel like this corner of YouTube is still relatively small. Like, I love the beauty realm of YouTube. I'm always watching makeup tutorials and stuff. But some of them have, like, in an hour, they'll have millions of views. And I'm like, wow, hardly anybody in the political sphere is at this level of viewership. Almost nobody. I mean, Philly D probably, but that's about it. So maybe it would help if we kind of made our presence known.
Yeah, no, you're right, though. There are certain areas of YouTube that are just massive, like the video game, pretty much everything that has to do with entertainment, and then beauty all across the board. They're very large pockets of YouTube for sure.
So I took some questions on Twitter, because we got about 20 minutes left that I wanted to address. So Stan Kanopka, who's a friend of the show, Beauty and the Beta, he asked, do you think conflicts with Antifa will continue to escalate? And do you think a different leader would be satisfactory to them? Stay safe?
Yeah, I definitely think at this point they're escalating, and they seem to get worse every rally. But the difference is that there's a larger police presence every time. Like at Portland, Homeland Security was there. It was that big. So yes, they're definitely escalating. And I don't necessarily know if it would have been that much different. It would have been a lot different, but they still might have been there, because like these Antifa, most of them are like communists. And if Hillary had won, she wasn't advocating for communism that I was aware of. So they still would have, like, for example, when I was in Europe, in Paris, on Victory Day, they had a huge march. The Antifa, Macron had just won, but Antifa was marching against government in general. So just depending. It probably wouldn't have been as bad as this, nowhere near, actually. Like, I know we're expecting like a summer of rage or something, they're calling it, of like riots starting in July. So I think really bad things are to come. Yeah. And that's why, like, in my most recent video, I was talking about somehow we have to reform the lines of communication, because if we don't, the bubbles are just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger until they explode, and just, crap hits the fan.
So how organized do you think Antifa is? Because at the Milo event that I went to, which is the only time I've ever interacted with them, they seemed like they had basically no method of formal organization.
I think it depends on the city. I think it depends on where the rally is.
What about
some are more organized than others? They were fairly organized, yes, but it's nowhere near the amount of organization they have in Europe. Like they have like uniforms, flags, chants, everything. Way, way more organized, way more threatening. It was insane. But here, the thing is, it's like Antifa, but then you have BAM. You have a lot of groups. Black Lives Matter. There's a lot of groups that are in opposition to us and that like to go to and protest us. So it's not just Antifa, but Antifa seems to be the ones most willing to commit acts of violence. Like there were photos the Portland police published of all the weapons that they had taken. They had disarmed the Antifa. There were like knives, also like deadly weapons. So
yeah, were they throwing bricks at people's heads at Berkeley?
That's why the police went in, because bricks were coming loose from a wall near where the Antifa was, and the police were suspecting that they were going to start throwing bricks at people because they were throwing like used tampons and all sorts of nasty stuff.
Are you serious?
Yeah. It was really, I was like scarred for life. Yes.
I didn't know that. That's disgusting.
Yeah. But I mean, obviously it's harmless, like at least, in comparison with a brick. So
God, yeah. So but BAM seems like they're fairly organized. I saw the leader of BAM. Her name escapes me. Do you remember what her name is?
I'm forgetting her name now.
I saw her on Tucker Carlson and like this stuff that was coming out.
It's like Evelette something. Falarka.
That's
something like that. I don't remember.
Oh God! But I was just watching in complete awe because she was straight up saying like the right, like their souls are rotten and they need to be physically destroyed. I was just like, holy shit! Like she has a real agenda. That will use violence.
Well, that's the thing. It's their strategy to make us sound like the worst of the worst so that any tactics they may use against us, no matter how violent, will be justified in the eyes of people who don't know any better, who just believe what they've labeled us. So, if you've been labeled a white supremacist and people believe it and you get murdered, there's probably not going to be a riot over your death because, it was a white supremacist, not a big deal that we lost them. That's what they're doing. That kind of, but yeah, I think we should push back against it, but I don't know. Or use people that, on the other side that are actually willing to communicate with them. I don't know that it's actually going to work, like civil war and all that might be inevitable, but maybe we can slow the rot.
I wonder that too. Is this an inevitability? I mean, it would be different than other wars because millennials are not a generation prepared for any kind of fighting. I don't think.
Yeah, some of them are. A lot of people in my circles, especially growing up, and a lot of people that I know now they all have guns. They all have.
Yeah, but all those people are on the right. Yeah, like almost every gun owner I know.
But and they all have guns. They're all they're very efficient with a gun. They're all survivalists, so they have food. If the economy crashes or something, they're going to be all set.
Yeah. So this is why I'm moving to Idaho.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, in a year.
When? Sweet. Welcome.
Yeah, I visited a few small towns. My boyfriend and I, this was like 3 months ago or so. We're like, okay, I hate Seattle and we got to move after your deployment. And I don't want to have kids here because it's crazy. So unrelated, but there, the elementary school here, the boys had to stand up at the public school and take a pledge not to rape.
Oh my gosh.
And so I was like, absolutely not. I'm not having children in Seattle. When you get back from your deployment, let's move. And so we visited some small towns, and I just loved Idaho.
Yeah, it's really like there's not a whole lot going on, and in regarding someone who wants to travel a lot, like that's my main thing right now. It's because I've been traveling a lot lately, and it's really difficult to travel from like the Spokane airport or Spokane, however you pronounce it.
Yeah.
It's really hard to get flights, but that's the only thing. That's the only negative.
Spokane kind of sucks though. We drove through it, and I was like, this looks a lot like some of the bad areas of Seattle. And it's kind of a river town, but once we got to other areas of Idaho, the people were like super friendly.
They're so friendly. They're so friendly. Even in a store, it's crazy. Yeah. It's such a difference, like a shock from California, coming from California.
And it was just it seems like such a welcome change. And like, it was so quiet at night. And I'm like, this is what I want for my kids. There's a charter school that's like top notch. Perfect. I was reading the reviews of this charter school that I want to send my kids to, and all the reviews that were 2 stars were like lack of diversity. I was like, awesome. This is great. This is totally perfect. Let's take this last Twitter question. Or actually, we have 2 more. Economic or not, migrants are overflowing. What can be done about it other than closing borders and warning shots above their heads?
Well, if we don't close borders, the problem's not going to be resolved in any way. Like enough. I think it's as for the ones that are already there. I mean, if they're not contributing to society, if they're on welfare, or if they're believed to be extremists in any way, then it'd probably be a good idea not to have them there, because it's just going to affect the economy negatively and everything. If they're not assimilating, it's just going to create pockets of their culture within France, Germany, whatever.
What is this mentality that everybody in the world has the human right to exist in any country that they want to, that they just have that? That's just so fucking stupid. Why would anybody believe that? I can't just go like set up shop in any country I want to.
Yeah, I know, exactly. It's like I can't just go to Japan and demand they let me in there.
And they never would. They'd be like, get out of our country.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't understand where this sudden disrespect for borders and, preserving a country's security and identity, cultural identity comes from.
Right. So, and what I will say to that question is something that can be done other than closing borders, which is the most important thing, is for people to start having cultural pride and ancestral pride. That will build communities, and having things that are shared with others, you really will build this network and this community, and then you'll be stronger. So, if you're proud of your culture, you're proud of your people, you're proud of your country, you're not going to want a bunch of people from the third world to flood in and destroy everything that you've worked for your whole life. And I think that this guilt for our prosperity and for our race is probably, I don't know, maybe the biggest part of this problem.
Yep, definitely.
All right, last question, and then I'm going to close out. This is a little one. Brittany and Rebecca, stress relief practices that either of you employ in order to continue to be in good humor. I like this question because
me too.
These last few weeks, I have just been like we're just so screwed, and so I've had to develop, a few things. But I work out a lot. I do bar and ballet, and so that's how I keep calm, and then I just try to get enough sleep and not eat garbage, and I'm usually all right. And I don't drink alcohol; that helps too. But
yeah, neither do I. I drink alcohol like twice a year. I just don't really like it. I never have, but I drink a lot of coffee. Since I got home, I was in such a good routine with exercising and everything, but then I was traveling so much, so I'm now trying to get back into that exercise. Like Epsom salt baths are amazing.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, they're so good. But then also I've I'm not shy, but I've always been introverted in the sense I like isolation, because that's where I get to write and do the things that I want to do. So when I'm around people too much, I get really stressed. It's just, I can't do it. I start to kind of break down. So I just take alone time. And
wow. So how do you do this job? I'm kind of the same way. And so I'm fumbling through this, but if I don't have a certain amount of alone time, the scrutiny, the public scrutiny, really wears on me. So how do you cope with that?
The thing is, I love people, but I just, it's something with my personality. So I just have to shut down. I just don't go on my Twitter or whatever like that, because I need to be alone. And so I just stay, my family really respects it, because most of the people in my family are the same, even more so than me, some of them. So it's awesome. We have a really good, system going in my house, and I love it. So yeah, I just stay by myself. I write, and I love music, listen to music all the time. Exercise, stuff like that. But that's kind of how I decompress, because being around people so much. I think that's why I chose writing initially, because it's a very solitary occupation, and it's just what I prefer. And so I think I can do it pretty well, as long as I have a couple days here and there where I can just vanish from the face of the earth.
Maybe this is a perfect job, because you get that human interaction, but it really is under your control, because you can just shut off.
And also because they're such amazing people, it's not people where you have to hide what you think from, and they're also very welcoming. I've always felt since I first spoke out, I was super welcomed by most people, and so that's been really helpful.
Oh, people have been awesome. Lana from Red Eyes has been especially helpful. When
she's such a sweetheart.
And she's been so great, and I'll message her about things in my life, and so it's just right away, because you're expressing these views and because you're going to be alienated from other communities, people on the right, they know that, and they'll welcome you, and they'll make sure that you're taken care of. So
yeah, it's awesome. I'm so thankful for it.
Me too. I'm going to read these super chats, and then we can wrap up. We've got $5 from Liberative, friend of the show also. Let's get this started. Both of you Give hope to many with your rational and realistic take on contemporary Western civilization. Thank you so much. $5 from Coco for Kosh. Thank you very much for that. And $5 from BT2. You white people are doomed. Only cloning technology will help you fools populate enough to survive. I am working on that, okay? When my boyfriend gets back, we'll wait out. Okay. AR7271, $2. Less identity politics and more problem solving, please. Jeez. Some sad Sallies. Stan Konopka, $2. Try not to lose faith. You give me hope for the future. And Sven Servet, $2. Philly D for Beauty and the Beta. We will try, but that is never going to happen because he's too big now. So do you want to tell people where they can find you?
Sure, yeah. The best place is my Twitter. It's at Britt Pettibone, or my YouTube channel, which is Brittany Pettibone. And I'm starting to make a lot more videos on there now. It's not just interviews. I'm making videos on my own. So if you're interested in that, then yeah, those are the two best places. And on both those platforms, they have links to everywhere else that I may be found.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me for the hour, and I will see you soon.
Yeah, it was